What is up, everybody? Alex106 here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the state of my live rig. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably noticed that I have been kind of going all up and down with different rigs, trying to prepare for an international trip. So I just recently went to Bristol for Machina Bristronica and played a techno set with Trovarsi. And then we went over to Amsterdam Dance Event and got to do a talk with Reason Studios. We played at the Allen and Heath and Björk's booth, so that was super fun. And I was just trying to make a setup that was going to be really compact and travel worthy. So what I ended up with was an 84 HP Eurorack case, the Oxy 1 sequencer, Novation Launch Control XL, Novation Launchpad Mini, and the MacBook Pro. And so in the computer, I'm using Bitwig as well as Reason. We'll get there in a minute. But yeah, the whole point of this was to just try and make something that was really fun, really improvisational friendly, like something that I could just make stuff on the fly with, and also be able to fly with very easily. So how I traveled was I put this 84 HP in a backpack. This is the ALM 84 HP 6U, by the way. Put this in a backpack and then put the rest of this stuff in a roller bag. My computer went in the backpack as well. The roller bag had all my clothes, it had my power supplies, and it had all this stuff in it. And the cool thing about that setup was that the backpack just went over the top of the luggage handle. And so I could just roll it around everywhere we went. It was super easy to get around. And then this guy went under the seat. So in case the people at the gate, made me check my roller bag, which they didn't this time. But if they did, which is, relatively common, then I would have gone ahead and just taken out the Oxy because it has a battery in it and use that as my personal item. Put this as my, carry-on on my back. I don't think anyone would have said anything. But yeah, I traveled all over with this setup, and this fit under the seat, which was just great for my peace of mind, knowing where it was and knowing that it was, safe and sound. It fit in the backpack with a deck saver on, which was awesome. And I even took an EasyJet flight from Bristol to Amsterdam, and I was able to get this in the personal item luggage, which it's right on the edge. I had to take my headphones out of the bag. I had to take a couple things out of the bag to make it skinny enough to fit in their little, checker, the little metal thing. But luckily, I was able to shove it in there and take it out. And I was able to get on the flight with it. And so this went under the seat. Again, roller bag went up. Super easy to travel. So that was a lot of fun. And so in order to be in something this small, I had to offload a lot of my voices into the computer. And knowing that I was going to be playing with Trovarsi, I just wasn't super worried about, like drum tones, things like that, because she's covering that. I'll show you my setup in just one second. But I just needed to have lots of tones at my disposal, and I needed to be able to make stuff on the fly. So using the Oxy was a great thing for that. I have drum voices in here, so I've got a drum rack, and this is actually multiple drums of Reason racks, and I was able to sequence those in the Oxy. And then on channel 2 here, I've got two voices in the modular. So I've got the Legion voice with 2 Legions, a Carbon, and a Javelin, and then the Basil Pizza, which I use all the time. So the Basil Pizza is kind of more of my like bass voice, and then the Legion was more of like an experimental FM kind of pluck sound. That's kind of what I gravitated towards. Then, as you know, I cannot live without the assimilator. So I have the assimilator basically doing 4 stereo samples. 2 are going into so the first one is going into an overseer, then into an axis. So the axis acts as my VCA for this voice. So if we bring this up, you can see the Javelin is just controlling the crossfade, and I've only got things plugged into the right side. So therefore, when it hits the CV, we get that noise. And then I can use that crossfade to just let the noise through all the time because I've got this set to a loop on the assimilator here. And that's a lot of fun for breakdowns. I've got an identical voice over here, just using a different noise sample. And I can do the same thing with that. And then I've got a little weird vocal sample here. This one's going through the Ikari filter, which was a lot of fun to just like throw things around in the stereo space. But most of the time I just high pass it really high, so it's just this like thing up top there. And then I've got that going through the basal delay. So lots of fun just there. And then what I'm doing here is something I do in the Metron and Volterra combo. I've made a video on it before, but I'm going to show you in the Oxy. So if I bring this back up here and we go into this sample here, we'll see the start point. You'll see I'm jumping around in start point. So what I like to do is just use like a noise sample that's like a noise sweep with a bunch of cool filters and things like that. And then we're just jumping around in start point. So how we're doing that is this is channel 1 here, or track 1 here. So we'll select that. And you can see it's just playing random rhythms. I can just add more stuff, kind of see what happens, add some sustain for that long one. Stuff like that. Then you go into the mod lane, and I've got the mod lane set up to send CV. And so if we say shift here, check this guy out, I had to go in here and make sure that smooth was off. Because if you have smoothing on, you're basically going to hit your CV point in the middle of the note because it's going to slew to it. So you want to make sure that that's off for this purpose. So that way, when you hit a step, you're going to jump to that start point. And so now I can just go through here and just draw different lines in the mod lanes and just get different sounds by just jumping around to different points in the start point, or start points in the sample. I've got that running through an overseer, and then the overseer, I've got the maestro. So one of the cool things about this rig is I actually was like, man, I have more space left over. What can I put in here to make things interesting? And so I've got the maestro here from Acid Rain Technologies. That's running into this overseer. If we turn up this guy, like here, you can hear all that filter sweeping. That's all happening from the maestro here. And what's fun with this guy is it's clock synced. So I've got a clock coming out of Bitwig here, out of the ES-9. And I actually don't have a clock synced right now, apparently. Must have taken that cable out at some point. But it doesn't really need to be. I can just have an LFO running. And I can do a simple LFO or more of a complex wave shape just by hitting one, hitting chain, and then chaining together different shapes, different speeds, and things like that. So right now I've got one that's like goes up and down over like the course of a bar, then it goes up a couple times, and it's just a fun way to just add modulation to this sound. So I've got the modulation on all 3 of these stereo filters. We don't need to go through it, but once we add a little bit of delay, it gets really interesting. Or reverb. And so then that brings me to the computer. So basically, right now, I'm only using 3 stereo samples of the assimilator. I didn't really find it necessary to add a 4th one, so we'll just move on. Going into the computer for that specific channel, all I've got is a tool on here. I've got nothing going on with the volume. That's just in case I need to turn it down so my fader movement is more natural. But when we move over into the send and or the sends here, or the return channels here, the effects channels, you can see I've got a Reason plugin here called Ripley. And so Ripley is a super fun, I'm saying super a lot, I know EasyBot, I'm saying super a lot, I'm sorry. But yeah, so this is a fun thing. So basically it's a delay with a reverb, kind of like a space echo, but with a lot more things to do with it. So we turn up in here. You can see I've got distortion on a little bit. So it's just adding a little bit more grit. And then I really love this digital sound. I've just got that, you know, just a little bit wet, not a ton. But I have an LFO going to the rate crush. So this is the sample rate. So that's creating that just kind of sweeping digital sound in the background. And then I've got the ducker turned up quite a bit. And so the ducker basically just says, if a signal's present, turn the delay down. So that way you hear the sample more. And then once the sample or signal disappears, the delay really turns out. So I've been really digging the Ripley delay for that. Cool. So let's just show my bass voices real quick. So we've got over here, if I turn this on, it is on. It's muted. So for the most part, I was just kind of doing stuff like this. Just really subtle envelope, really subby kind of bass lines to be more of a rumble. So if we bring in a kick and nothing else, really just kind of having it in that background. Then we have this kind of going. And again, I'm not even playing the kick. All the drums is what Trovarsi's doing. She's making rad beats while I'm just kind of making stuff on top of it. She did lots of sub stuff too, but when it was time for me to just have sub content, I had this figured out here. And then what's fun about the pizza, as always, is you can just rip this fader here and basically just get some cool sounds just by going up there. Every time I do it, I turn the delay up or the reverb or whatever that is on there just a ton, so that way it just kind of goes out. You can see here I do have EQ, which is kind of crazy, but I just wanted a big subby thing. And then here I've got a sidechain to my kick on that low frequency, so that way on the 4 on the floor beat, the sub just gets taken out a little bit just to make that kick happen. Got a tool just to turn it down a bit, got a compressor, and then turning it down even more just so it fits with where we need it to go. I can turn that fader up all the way and it won't be too loud. Next voice is the javelin, like I talked about. Again, this thing is super simple. Basically, I'm usually just using 1 or 2 notes and just making this kind of bell sound with it. And what's fun about this guy is I can change the different octaves of modulation to get different timbres. And then I've got the envelope to just kind of make it slower, make it more of a texture. And then that also sounds really boring until you run it into Ripley. So now we bring that kick back up. And there we go. We've got this cool extra little texture that's really simple. If I want to create something a little bit more complex, I might just go in and just change the end point of this guy. So like, let's do 7. And then, you know, I might go in and say like, I'm just gonna do a random pattern to make the density pretty high. See what it sounds like. There we go. So just another quick little thing. And then what's rad about the Oxy is you can always undo and just go back. So that's been those are the voices. So that's been like a cool addition to the sound. So now I want to go into the drums and show you what I'm doing here, because I'm using, again, Reason for the drums, and this has been a lot of fun. So I've got an instrument selector here with 3 different racks that I can just choose from. And I totally did plan to originally go through here and make a switch on this, but I ended up just using the mouse in the computer, just keeping the computer open and just switching to the different voices by clicking the different things here. So let's go look at one of them. So we'll open this up. And so I've basically got a mixer up here. I'm not really using the mixer for anything except to have a separate send and return, because I wanted this one to have its own effects. And so we're just listening to the kick right now, but you can see down here, I've got an EQ and a reverb. The EQ is just to high pass whatever goes into the reverb. And then the reverb has this sidechain on it just to give it pumping. Then on the delay, I've got a filter in here with a little bit of envelope just so it gives it a little bit of movement. Sounds cool when there's other drums, right? And just a simple delay line there from Reason. And then this umph drums thing has been one of my favorite drum machines. And I'm going to show you why. So if we go through here, actually, if we just listen to it right away, you can hear that we've got a little bit, like we've got this rumble kick. So the secondary kick, got the first kick, which is just an 808. Again, I'm not playing drums with her. These are more for my reference when I'm making the stuff. It's like I need drums, so they're just simple. I'm not really paying attention to these, like how these sound too much. But what is cool about them is you can say, I'm going to select this guy, and you can send it to this delay, this chop algorithm, and this reverb. And then you've got this extra bit of texture happening. So let's mute these. So these are the 3 drums that I focus on up here. And what I like about these is this one is just like a tom, but I've got an LFO going to the pitch. So it's always sounding a bit different. It's a fun, interesting texture. And you can see I've got chop turned up a lot, delay turned up a lot, and reverb turned up a lot. So you can hear with that chop and the delay, we've got this cool texture happening. If we go over to chop, you can see it's basically probability of repeating, reversing, and repitching the sample. So it just creates new textures without having to do much other than sequence a rhythm. And now if we go to the next one, same thing. This is just a percussive like synth blip where I've got the chop, delay, and reverb on. Again, just make a cool pattern, let it roll. Turn on the kick. Sounds pretty good. And then this last one, same exact thing, just another synth blip. So if I turn up that reverb or delay, let's turn off the kick right now and just imagine a kick. Reverb with that pumping. That's basically what I've got going on there. Super long tails just for like big swells. And then I can just switch these and get different sample sounds. So this rack is the same idea, just with different samples in it. And I believe I accidentally deleted the send on that particular rack earlier on accident, so I have to remap that. And then this is the last one. So again, same idea, but much different samples. So I haven't even changed the rhythms, and we've got completely different sounds. Turn these reverbs down. That's a cool like subby one. And then these ones, much more like noisy kind of sounds. But with this chop and delay up here, again, you get this really cool texture in the back. So if we turn up the assimilator sounds, and then our bass, we've got techno, baby. So I do have a couple different patterns in here saved for this set. So I do have a couple patterns saved for this set. Right? Love that bass line. So I do have a couple different starting points just to mess around, but for the most part, I'm just going through in here and just writing stuff because Oxy is fun to do that. So again, like with this setup, I am offloading a lot of the things that I would use in the modular, but maybe not touch so much, into the computer. And then with using the Oxy and the launch control, it feels like I'm playing hardware, because I am. All the sequencing is in the Oxy. I'm not really doing any sequencing in here, except I do have the ability to launch some scenes, which are basically parts of tracks that Trovarsi and I have made in the past. So if we want to play tracks that we made, then I can just use the launch pad here to say, like, we'll play this song. Turn up the kick.
That bitch. Shoot that bitch. That bitch.
And clocking. I'm just using Bitwig as the master, so when I press play over here, everything plays, everything's in sync. So, speaking of that,
Shoot that bitch.
why I love Bitwig so much is if you go into here, go into the synchronization settings, you can see you have one, we're using Ableton Link. So to control or to sync both of our setups, Trovarsi is using a computer with Bitwig as well. We're just syncing via an Ethernet via this USB dongle. So we just take an Ethernet cable, run that from my computer to hers, turn on Ableton Link, and we are in sync, ready to go. And then in this setting here, you can see if I had any latency issues with the Oxy, I could just adjust those straight from the panel here. And that's one of the reasons why I love Bitwig. I did have this set to something, but I think that I ended up going back to 0 because it was just good enough. So I didn't really need it to be adjusted that much. All right, and so the last thing I want to show real quick, because I forgot to show this, is my last track, which is another Reason track. I've got an instrument selector here with 4 different racks. So let's turn this one on and check this guy out. So I've got the grain sample manipulator running through the alligator filter, which is basically 3 different filters that it sequences through. And so right now it's bypass. If I turn it on, you'll hear just kind of that filter sound. But I kind of like it off. Then we're going through a chorus and then into Ripley. And this is basically a suspended cymbal, so it sounds like cymbal scratches. So if we press play, I can just add these cool textures on top. Doesn't matter what key I hit because it's literally just atonal. So then I just switch to the next one. The next one's really fun. This is the Terminator 2 Special. So this is basically an old school style sampler with a trumpet sample in it, going through a little bit of distortion, reverb, and then just some compression at the end, compression. And so if we listen to it up top, it's got a reverb on it. And the high frequencies, it's a trumpet. You can do some cool kind of cinematic stuff if you bend it with the pitch bend on Oxy. But where that gets really interesting is in the super low registers, so down here. So again, play it. We can do some high stuff like, and then go higher. That's a lot of fun. And then this last one, I didn't use too much, but I put it there. Actually, no, I have one more. This one is a drone sample, again, going into grain. Out of grain through a little bit of a wave folder, just a tiny bit of mount, and then into Ripley. So again, just this crazy, crunchy texture. Ultimate techno. All right. And now the last one. The last one is just a monotone bass voice right here. Just mini Moog style. So if we play this, and I want something a little bit more synthy. If I want to record that, we can press play, hit record. And there we go. So it's kind of fun just to make a little sequence on that guy. I don't have any controls on it. It's just if I want a classic synth sound, I've got it. Go back to here, clear that out. We're ready to go for the next thing. So that's it. That's the setup. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much to Machina Bristronica for having Trovarsi and I. Thank you to Trovarsi for having me along and playing with you. It is always so much fun and an honor to get to do so. And thank you to Reason Studios for having Trovarsi and I show our setup at ADE. It was really cool to connect with just new people, new folks, and show our workflow and how we are doing this hybrid thing in order to make our setups small and portable. So that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.